Basic sample. The bar graph shows the main reasons why Taiwanese people use social media. 57.2% of the participants chose keeping in touch with friends as the most popular reason. Filling leisure time is the second most popular, with 49.1% of the participants choosing it. Additionally, seeing what's being talked about, 38.4%, finding content like videos, 36.7%, and reading news, 31.8%, are popular reasons. Only 21.5% of the participants selected finding shopping ideas as their reason. As for my personal habits, they're similar to the majority of participants in the survey. I mainly use social media to stay connected with friends and family. I use these platforms to communicate with my loved ones regardless of the distance between us. Through features like instant messaging, picture sharing, and updates, I am able to maintain close relationships and stay involved in their lives. Advanced sample. In today's digital age, social media has become an essential part of our lives, providing a means of both communication and entertainment. The bar graph illustrates the top 6 reasons Taiwanese people use these platforms, with respondents allowed to select up to 3 primary usage habits. The main reason is to maintain connections with friends and family, accounting for 57.2% of the responses. Additionally, nearly half of the respondents stated that they use social media just to fill their spare time. The next 3 reasons revolve around staying informed, keeping up with prevailing issues, discovering content like videos, and reading news articles. Seeking inspiration for purchases, which was selected by around a quarter of the respondents, ranks as the 6th most popular reason. When it comes to my habits for using social media, most of my selections align with the chart. Aside from keeping in touch with friends, my primary use of social media is to absorb new information by reading international news, following the latest trends, and exploring meme culture. As someone aspiring to become a video content creator, I see social media as a valuable resource for gaining inspiration. It not only keeps me updated, but also allows me to learn new skills. All in all, social media usage varies depending on individual preferences and needs, but no matter how it's used, it's a powerful tool for communication, connection, and personal growth. Hi everybody, welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
I'm Elsie.
And today we're looking at our graph writing unit. So this is about social media. Now we've covered social media a little bit earlier in our translation unit this month, but we talked about how often we use it, but what do we think we use it for if we were to take some of these graph reasons?
Oh, I use social media to stay in touch with my friends and family.
Yeah, I would say, kind of, and I mentioned earlier, I used to. That was the reason why I joined. Now it's more about kind of seeing what's going on, because if there's something interesting, either somebody will post about it or like I'll get stuff like from BBC News on my Facebook feed, or, sports news will be on, and that will then, if I see it, then I'll go, oh, okay, I'll maybe go and check that news story out. So it used to be more about friends and sharing jokes and photos. Now it's just kind of, well, I could check 8 different websites, or I could kind of quickly scroll down Facebook and see if there's anything major that I want to go and check out first.
Yeah, and maybe people now use it to, to learn how wonderful other people's lives are.
I don't. Yeah, I don't really follow that. But, so I follow, certain, whether it's a few sort of actors or authors or something like that I'll follow to kind of get some news about what's going on, or some groups that tell me like, hey, there's a a publishing company that wants these kind of stories, maybe you can write something. So that is maybe a more niche use of mine to specifically look for auditions or submission opportunities.
Right.
And again, it's a quick place to go and look before I spend time searching like 12 other websites for more specific stuff.
Yeah, and also now you can actually use it to do some shopping.
I don't bother with that.
They'll, introduce fashion trends on their social media and you can get information.
Pass. I don't do any of that. That would not be one of my top 3 choices from this graph. But onto the graph. The instructions are, for this writing unit, the bar chart below displays the top 6 reasons why Taiwanese people use social media. Each survey respondent, meaning everyone who answered, was allowed to select up to 3 primary usage habits. So this is quite important because everybody's not just selecting one answer, they're not writing their own answer, they're picking their top 3. And so the instructions are then write an essay describing the chart and how it reflects you in at least 120 words. The first paragraph describes the content of the chart. The second paragraph discusses your usual habits for using social media, including the reasons for these habits.
今天的提示呢，里面写到的是下方长条图呈现的是台湾人使用社群媒体的前6大理由。每位受访者呢，可以选3项主要的使用习惯，请依据图表内容撰写一篇英文作文，文长至少是120个单词，文分2段，第一段描述图表的内容，第二段则是要描述你自己平常主要使用社群媒体的习惯为何，然后要说明原因、理由。
So for the first paragraph, we'll be using descriptive language, but it should be a little distant. You're describing a chart. You're not putting in personal stuff. You don't need any personal stuff. Everything is facts. Everything is present tense. Things like this is, this shows, the chart demonstrates. In the second paragraph, though, you'll switch to first-person present tense to show what you do with social media, why you do it, and whether your answers are the same or different from the chart.
是的，在第一段描述图表的时候呢，你要用的是第3人称单数。那在第二段描述个人的时候，你要用的是第1人称。那接下来到了 develop and approach 的地方，第一个，本篇为图表写作。图表写作所呈现的是统计的数字，也就是 statistics， 事实 facts， 数据分布的情形 distributions， 还有就是调查或报告的说明，也就是 explanations。那常见的步骤是呢，第一个，我们先分析图表，确实描述图表所传递的主旨。第二个，解读图表的内容，描述图表当中具有意义而且值得描述的数值，或是比较其相对的关系。第三个，要描述的是自身的相关经验，适时加入自己的看法或是推论，以呼应主题。
Now, interpreting a chart is a little more advanced than simply describing it. If you're interpreting it, you're using your own knowledge to explain the patterns seen in the graph. Now, it's great if you can do it, but if you're not sure, then stick with a more simple description just of what the graph shows. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you try something more, a bit of interpretation, you may be able to get a better mark as you demonstrate that you understand things and you can apply your knowledge to something specific like this graph.
那第二个，如同一般文章的起承转合，图表写作的内容呢，必须完全符合图表当中的资讯哦。首先呢，你要清楚的理解到本图表的主题是什么，图表当中的统计数字或符号分别代表什么，其中有没有哪一项是最突出等等的。那依照提示说明呢，第一段需要指出各个项目分别为何，客观的分析图表显示的资讯，避免加入个人的观点，好，过多的个人观点是不可以的。那第二段呢，则是要将个人经验融入你的写作，描述自己主要使用社群的习惯跟缘由。
It's important to describe the graph in a logical order, and here the most logical thing is to begin with the most popular thing people use social media for and move down the list. Now you could start at the bottom, like what's in 6th, and move towards first, but think about what someone looking at the graph will see first, or what someone who only hears about what the graph's going to show will want to know first, which is what is in the number 1 spot. For your second paragraph, remember that you'll need a topic sentence as well as your personal information. A good topic sentence will help readers see how the two paragraphs are different, what's going to be in each one, and then they won't kind of be confused and lost as you make the transition.
第三个，除了内容要流畅完整之外呢，文法结构、组织、字词的搭配、修辞等技巧的自然运用也都是很重要的。那我们要求能够正确使用字句来描述数值的变化，再来尝试运用不同的单字表达，增加文章的深度。
Now, it is easy to get repetitive with the language you use in a graph article. It's important not just to say, it shows this, it shows that, or if in this case where they've got a top 6, number 1 is this, number 2 is this, number 3 is this. It won't be wrong, but it won't be very interesting to read. So think of different ways to do these sentences and state these facts. You'll see some in our basic and advanced sample, but a really good thing you can do to learn how to do this well is go and find a YouTube video that's doing like a top 10 something or a top 5 something, and you'll see how the better videos are scripted so that each entry is introduced in a different way so it gets variation, it's more interesting to listen to, and then you can copy that in your writing so every different fact in the article is introduced in a slightly different way that makes it less boring.
好，那接下来呢，我们要讲到的就是长条图写作常常会使用到的句型。好，这些句型、这些单字都是非常重要的。第一个呢，当我们要描述这个长条图它显示的内容是什么的时候，你当然可以很简单的用到 shows 这个动词。好，那就是 the bar graph shows。那你也可以选用比较难一点点的字，像是 displays， 像是 points out， 还有 reveals、indicates、explains， 或者是 illustrates， 后面加上that 之后再加上一个名词子句，也就是主词加上动词。那或者是呢，你也可以用 the bar graph deals with， 或是 is about， 或是 describes、depicts， 后面再加上名词。那还有一种呢，你可以用 according to 或是 based on the bar graph 来开头，然后接续写这个长条图内容是什么。
Yeah, and these 3, as well as number 4, are kind of your maybe topic sentence for the first paragraph. It's how you introduce what you're going to see. 5 and 6 are more about describing some of the smaller details in that graph. So this is where you can start to think about the variation. But what you wouldn't want to do is go, a quarter of people say this, half the people say this, and 25% or a small proportion of people say this, because again, that's repetitive. That's using the same kind of sentence structure 2 or 3 times in a row, and whoever's marking the exam is going to go, it's okay, it's not incorrect, but I'm going to give a better mark to the student who used more variation.
是的，所以介绍了这么多的句型给同学们，那你们就是要在写作的时候去这些句型当中做一些挑选还有转换的使用。好，不要都用同样一种句型。那接下来呢，要介绍的是怎么样的句型是特别用于图表中的各项目的比较。像是第一个呢，有 similarly、likewise、in contrast 或是 by contrast， 选择一个之后，逗号加上，后面加上主词以及一个动词。然后呢，还有像是 like 或是 unlike， 好，带出相同跟不相同的事情。再来第三个就是 while 跟 whereas， 带出2个相反的。
So these sets of sentences are all about pointing out things that are similar or not, comparing and contrasting. Now, you could do this just to give variations in points. Some of these work better for certain graphs and some don't work well with certain graphs. The information we've given you here is kind of general, but you've got to think in your graph, what is it actually showing, and therefore, is it appropriate to use this particular number or this particular sentence? Some work better with pie charts, line graphs, different types of tables and figures, and you won't always be able to use all of them. So do kind of think, what am I actually saying with this sentence? All right, we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we're going to be making an outline for how we can describe the specific graph that's presented in our article. Hi everyone, welcome back. We've taken a look at some of the different language we can use in the first paragraph to explain our chart, or maybe in the second paragraph to contrast your personal experiences from the graph. Because remember, that's a big part of what this essay is about. But let's put this in the right order of sentences in an outline, and we can see how it'll fit together. And of course, we can add more details after the outline. We're just getting the overall structure here. So paragraph 1, the introduction is, the bar graph shows the main reasons Taiwanese people use social media. So that's a very clear topic sentence. And it is good to actually say what kind of chart it is. A pie chart, a bar graph, a line graph, instead of just the chart, the graph. Specific information is always more interesting. Adding that word to say what it is makes it more descriptive. And it's actually a good idea to write the first paragraph as if your reader can't see it. I mean, if your reader can see the graph, you don't really need to describe it, right? So the idea is, imagine your reader cannot see the graph at all, but you need to tell them all the information that's in it. Keep that in mind as you're writing the first paragraph, and then you're going to get all the information down.
是的，这个重点呢非常的实用，就是呢你要想象你的观众是没有办法，你的读者是没有办法看到这些图表的，你要叙述给他听，表示给他听。那再来这些图表的题目有很多种不同的图表，像是长条图 bar graph 圆饼图 pie chart， 还有折线图那是 line chart。
So here's the body. A, 57.2% of the participants chose keeping in touch with friends. B, filling leisure time is the second most popular, and 49.1% of the participants chose it. C, seeing what's being talked about, finding content like videos, and reading news are popular reasons. And D, only 21.5% of the participants selected finding shopping ideas. So all of those sentences just cover the graph, and you can see how there is variation even in the outline to help you to remember to do it when you're actually writing it out in full. So we've got first sentence beginning with percent, the second one with a gerund phrase, the third one also with gerund phrases, but they're used in different ways, and then the final one is back to a percentage again. So not huge variation, but enough that it's not just the same sentence pattern 4 times in a row.
是的，我们在 A, B 还有 D 当中看到了很多的百分比的描述。好，虽然呢它的开头句型都不太一样，那不过里面都有这个表达方法，也就是多少 percent of 后面加上群体。那这边的群体呢是 the participants， 也就是受访者们。所以呢第一个是 57.2 个百分比是用来与朋友保持联系的。那再来第二个是 49.1 49.1% 的人是用来填满空闲的时间。那还有就是 21.5% 的人呢是用在找寻购物的灵感。
Now we move on to paragraph 2, where our writer talks about their own choice. And the topic sentence is, as for my personal habits, they're similar to the majority of participants in the survey. So a solid topic sentence, the transition as for my clearly signals the shift in focus, as well as answering the basic question of what the writer's habits are. Of course, the more interesting parts are the details, but we want to know the why, not the what, but by introducing the what and doing a transition from the graph to me, we've clearly set out what this second paragraph is all about.
是的，这边用 as for my 带出他的个人经验。好，所以呢，我们看到他接下去的句子是 They are similar to the majority of participants in the survey。那这个 they 呢，指的就是 my personal habits。好，那就是我个人的习惯。那所以呢，我个人的习惯怎么样？是跟大部分的受访者都是相似的。
And here are those details for the body. A, I mainly use social media to stay connected with friends and family. B, I use these platforms to communicate with my loved ones.
OK， 所以它就是用来与朋友联系啦，与爱的人沟通啦。那这个爱的人可以是 family 家人或是另一半，好，都是可以的。
And the conclusion is, through social media, I am able to maintain close relationships and stay involved in their lives. A simple conclusion that sums up the main ideas of the second paragraph. We have mentioned the other things the person does, but keeping in touch is the main thing. That's what it is, the key thing.OK,
那在 conclusion 结论的部分呢，这个作者简单总结前面所提到的内容，有了社群媒体，我能够维系跟他人之间的感情，并参与他们的生活。
The outline, you can then, once you've got it, add more details, add transitions, and so on when you turn it into the full essay. Keep that logical structure of starting with number 1 and then moving down the list in the first paragraph. Don't leave out any details because...That would be silly, and that's why you do your outline, to make sure you've got all the details. It's a necessary step because it keeps your writing on point, helps to show where you've got too much information that you need to remove or not enough information that you need to add. You do all that before you start writing your actual essay, and then you won't have to go back and do so much editing and fixing of your essay once you see the problems later.So let's analyze some of these samples, starting with the basic sample. This follows the outline above pretty closely, covering all the details in the graph. And again, we've got the variation of sentences that we looked at a bit in the outline, but again, 57.2% of the participants chose, so we're starting with the percentage.Filling leisure time is the second most popular, so we've got the gerund phrase. Additionally, so we've got a transition for the third sentence, a conjunction to show that here is more information. So that's variation. And then in the final one,Only 21.5% of the participants selected, which is similar to the first one, but you've had 2 other types of sentences in between, so it doesn't look repetitive, and you've added the word only to highlight that this is the smallest choice, and no 2 sentences start in exactly the same way with exactly the same word.
是的，刚有提到过呢，这边的每一个句子在叙述图表的时候，它都是用不同的开头方式，那还有这个转折词是很重要的，不要一个一个这样子继续带下来，你可以加个转折词，像是这边用到的就是 additionally。So
there's not much more to say about the basic sample that we haven't already covered in our outline, so let's turn our attention to the advanced sample, which gets quite a bit more descriptive. And this one adds a little more about the actual survey, and it says that the people who took it only got 3 choices. So that kind of context is important because it helps people interpret the graph. It shows people aren't just picking their top choice, they're picking their top 3. That maybe explains why the numbers are higher, and that's why it's not a pie chart where it just shows the top choices. It's a bar graph, so the same person is contributing to 3 of the columns, or in this case rows, in the bar chart. So that's why the numbers aren't adding up to 100%. So it is an important piece of information that helps make understanding the graph a little clearer. And there's, again, variation in the description of how the graph works. So the main reason is to additionally blah, 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 the next 3 reasons, and then we've got the gerund seeking inspiration for purchases. Again, variation. They all start differently enough that it doesn't look boring.
没错，所以这边的也是在描述的时候呢，用不同的句型开头，还有就是转折词的使用，然后还有这些代表顺序的字的使用。好，比如说他这边还用到了 the next 3 reasons， 带出接下来的原因。那在里面呢，也有很多很重要的用字哦，像是 essential， 好，这个形容词不可或缺的。他说呢，这个东西 become an essential part of our lives。 好，与其写这个 important， 不如写这个 essential。 好，看起来你的英文功力更高深。那再来呢，他在解释图表的时候用到的是我们刚刚提到的这个动词illustrates， 好，代表阐释或是用图片说明的动词。那再来呢，还有when it comes to 的用法，好，代表的是说到谈论到。所以这里呢，说到谈论到我的 habits， 我的习惯，好，他用到的是这个片语来开头。那还有呢，除此之外还有什么东西他要接续下去说，接续下去补充的，他用了 aside from， 好，来开头。那最后用 all in all 带出结论。
Another thing to point out is that the advanced sample doesn't include every single percentage value, and that's fine as well. You might want to give 1 or 2 values, maybe particularly the top choice to show how popular it was, but if you've given a few values, maybe you really don't need to include all of them because you've given the right order, and the percentage values really aren't that relevant after you've given the order. Now let's take a look at some of the more complicated vocabulary used in the advanced sample. So we've got respondent, which you could also say responder, but respondent's a little more formal. It just means the person who has responded or taken the survey.
对，我们说 respond 是动词，那 respondent 那就是回答者、受访者。
Okay, we've then got these reasons revolve around something. If something revolves around a thing, if A revolves around B, B is the center. It's the sort of the main topic, and all the others are connected to it in some way.
也就是围绕，好，或者是以点点点为中心的意思。
Now, a person, the writer says, my views align with those of the chart, which means they're on the same side. They line up.
对，没错，所以我们要用的是 align with， 好，那就是对齐或是结盟。
Okay, then we have the word meme. Now, this is something I think everyone will know what it is.
迷因。
Yeah, it's a meme. But you can also say meme, by the way, and that was actually how it was first pronounced when the idea was invented. It's just become meme now. It's the idea when it was first invented is that it's an idea, a behavior, or a style that's spread by either copying or sharing from person to person within a culture to carry maybe a meaning or represent a phenomena or theme or something. A meme is a way to carry and pass on cultural ideas, symbols, practices, or just jokes from one mind to another, and it could be through writing or speech or gestures or anything that is copied and passed on. So when we talk about sharing memes, you're sort of sharing an aspect of a particular culture. When it was first invented, this term was actually supposed to be genetic, stuff that's passed on through DNA, but it's become used to mean like sharing stuff online and passing along funny or interesting or stuff, and it's often repeated. You see the same kind of things, but just done in slightly different ways so that everyone recognizes the form. They're just seeing what new thing you're doing with that form.
And in Chinese, we say 迷因.
Okay, there we go.
对，那就是网络上迅速传播的图像或是影片。
And the last word we've got is aspire. The person says, I aspire to be, or I am an aspiring video content creator. What you aspire to is what you dream of doing. It's your goal. So if you're an aspiring writer, you hope to be a writer. If you're an aspiring video content creator, you hope to have your own YouTube channel one day.
是的，那就是有志于做某事或是追求某个目标。
Okay, and that brings us to the end of our article. We hope you've enjoyed learning about how to write graphs today. We hope you've taken on board some useful information so you can write graphs of your own. For English Digest, I'm Pat.
I'm Elsie.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.